Hi, my name is Barry Sterling Mitchell. I produce the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings, and this is Ben and Barry on football.
Hello out there. My name is Ben Dickerson. I'm your co-host, lover of everything football, especially the NFL.
Ben is a fantasy guy. I'm a Madden guy. So that's why you see some action in the background. I'm actually, glad that the season's over, Ben. I think I injured myself playing Madden. Got some real trouble with my wrist. This is bad wrist. This is the same wrist I had a problem with when we played.
Oh God.
It's like a reborn injury from, that kind of stuff. So, but this is the Requiem for the Super Bowl. I'm a Niner fan. So it's been a tumultuous, emotional week for me, and we'll talk a little bit about it as we move to the first segment, which is the review segment. And before we do that, I always give my co-host a chance if he wants to say anything in advance.
Well, there always it seems to be a worry amongst I hate to use the term true football fans, but true football fans and casual fans who may only watch the championship series or rather the conference championships and the Super Bowl because it's such a big thing, and people seem to always be worried about if it's going to be a good game or not. They may not even really know what a good game is, or they're not clear about what they expect from the game in order for it to qualify as a good game for them. But as far as I'm concerned, this was a really good Super Bowl. We had a little bit of everything in this, big plays, no total dominance throughout the game by one team. We had a comeback. It wasn't a huge comeback, but it was tied with several others as the second biggest comeback. Big plays. Yeah, I thought this was a really good Super Bowl.
All right, so let's get ready to jump right into this Super Bowl. So, Ben, last week, the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings and the Bias Plus had the Niners having the favor by a score of 5. You brought out some awesome stats where you showed basically how close statistically not only the teams were, but the quarterbacks were pretty close statistically. Completely different styles. And, we'll talk a little bit about that. But, as a Niner fan, it took me a minute to even put up anything on our pages congratulating the Kansas City Chiefs. But I bucked it up, and I did name them as the Bias Plus Buster of the Week and Super Bowl 54 champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. They had an unfavorable bias against them of 5, but they had a net win of 11, giving them a Bias Plus Buster score of 16. And again, that would only go to the team that was not favored. So there you go. They weren't favored. They won that game and bust that bias. So let's talk about the game relative to a couple things. I want to talk about the game relative to the coaches. Do you think one coach out-coached the other, or one? And because, I like to call them the brain trust. That's one thing. Then, talk about the quarterbacks, a little bit and what you think maybe should happen. And then we can even go, however you want to go beyond that. So relative to the coach, just to get it started, do you think that Andy out-coached my Niners coach?
Excellent question. I don't want to go so far as to say that Big Red outcoached the young Shanahan. I believe that the 49ers had ample opportunities to pull out the victory. But I will say that I believe the Chiefs stuck a little closer to who they are and who they have been than the Niners did. In other words, there was a little bit more iffy play calling on the Niners side. There were some situations, as far as I saw it, with game flow, time in the game, what the score happened to be at the time, when I thought that maybe they passed a little more than they should have and should have stuck with their strength, which was running the ball. And there were times when they ran the ball and maybe didn't have the kind of success that they were used to, and they immediately went to the pass instead of sticking with the run. It wasn't throughout the game. They had their moments. There was a couple of drives that were things of actual beauty as far as the Niners are concerned. I mean, great, well-balanced, well thought out. Obviously, some of those runs that Deebo Samuel had on those fly sweep type plays, they found a weakness during film study with the Chiefs that the Chiefs actually, I don't think, ever really figured out during the game. But yeah, there were a few glitches in the Niners play calling, offensively I'm talking about, that may have lent to putting them in the position that they were in.
I say yes. My Niners coach was outcoached, and it's not
I
just
was trying to be kind.
Hey, look, we football fans, man. We get down to the real nitty gritty about it because it is what it is, and you recognize that, and then you go from there. My reasoning on that starts way back when, rather than take a Patrick Mahomes, I'm even forgetting my coach's name because it's freaking me out to think about it. He held out off of getting Patrick Mahomes because he wanted Kirk Cousins. That's who he was holding out for.
We're talking about Patrick Mahomes before he was drafted.
Right.
You're saying the Niners had a chance to draft Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
But decided to go the free agent route.
Right.
Okay.
And let's take it even back to Kaepernick, because one thing we're going to talk about is the advent of the mobile quarterback.
Okay.
Well, you had the prototype there, okay? And I remember not being confused as to why Kaepernick was leaving, why you would let him go, and then keep C.J. Beathard, who I thought basically was more of the same type of guy. Athletic, had an arm, maybe not the best passer or whatever, which is why Kaepernick was even better than him. But if you were to run that type of offense, you could run it with C.J. Beathard. I did it in the virtual world, and I saw that, okay? So I'm like, you let Kaepernick go, but then you keep C.J. Beathard. But what you really wanted, really wanted the same type of quarterback he had in Atlanta, that pocket guy, that field general, and
right.
That's what he thought Kirk Cousins was going to be. So
that's right. I agree with you. 100%.
So relative to being ahead of the curve on the mobile quarterback thing, he's still more old school relative to that. So the second thing is, I thought that in the critical times, he didn't give the Niners a chance to really improvise and do some of the little tactical things like the Chiefs did, like the hurry up. You know, you talk, when people look at the end of that first half, when we got that ball, okay, and he ran a running play, okay. Well, first off, before they got the ball back, he had the opportunity to stop the clock like on fourth down, and he didn't. So he signaled there that he wasn't really serious about going down and getting another score. That
They
was
had all three timeouts. They had all three.
They had all three
timeouts at
timeouts.
the end of the half. Yes.
So I mean, dude, you stop the clock, you get the ball back, you got 2 timeouts. Even if you run the ball and kill the clock and get a field goal, you get the ball right back. So I'm like, that's every Madden guy's dream. You know what I mean? To have that situation. And then your first running play is a run play. And I remember saying to you, because I do it in Madden all the time, the good thing about that is everybody's still close to the line of scrimmage. You can hurry back to the line of scrimmage, even if you're not going to do anything but kill the clock. But they meandered back to the line of scrimmage. Again, signaling we're not really trying to go score. But you run back to the line of scrimmage because if somebody is out of formation, off balance, something like that, you take advantage of that. You could have ran a second run play. Your run game was getting you 6+ yards a pop, like with those flanker sweeps and stuff. Dude, you could be down in field goal range and you got 2 timeouts. You know, you can throw in a short pass to Kittle. You can do the things, but that's when the creativity was supposed to happen. They didn't do it. They get a ball back to the Chiefs. The Chiefs do all of that. They go into the hurry up. The other thing is that I've always said, and you probably heard me say this, what hurts you during the regular season kills you in the postseason. One of the things that hurt us in the regular season was our inability to play 11-on-11 defense when there was a mobile quarterback. When they start running the options and they put you in a situation where if you're not going to play 11-on-11, then this guy's going to take advantage of you, you know? And in a Patrick Mahomes situation, too many times when there was third downs and crucial downs and even up on the goal line, you got to play 11-on-11. They go into option. We don't have an option mode. That wasn't something that's built into this offense, you know? So we don't really have that. So the creativity that you show, whatever you run, you know, with the way they run their game in San Fran, you know, you still have to use those tactics. But one of the things that the defense knows is that for the most part, you're not running Garoppolo. You know what I mean? He's not going to fake the handoff and run around and like Mahomes do. You pretty much know that.
Yeah, but that's not an excuse for them not to be prepared. They're not playing themselves. They're playing the Chiefs.
Oh, right. But I'm just talking about a defense, any defense having to deal with 11-on-10 versus an 11-on-11. You know what I mean? So our defense is in a division where at least 2 of the teams are going to make you play 11-on-11. So you should be better at it than what they were. I actually thought that they would play better because of their experiences, even with Lamar Jackson, you know? Yep. But yet he's still running around free. Bosa's still running past him and then going to try to come back. You can't do that with when you're playing that type of, you know, even your boy LT said, you know, you got to contain them first, you know? So, you know, they failed to do that way too many of the times. And then in third downs, you know, the Chiefs are going for it on fourth. They're not looking to be that aggressive. So, you know, I do think we did get out coached on a number of different levels. We still could have won that game with what we had if we simply make a few more plays. But your statistics on turnovers last week, and I remember saying to you, that's a scary statistic.
Yep.
So mention that again and how, you know, what happened.
Well, it was first of all, it was far closer than most people suspected. But because we do the net point power rankings and we stay on top of those things from week to week to week, we could actually see those numbers. And then I delved a little bit deeper to get actual numbers, this many sacks, this many interceptions, this many fumble recoveries, to find out that it was super, super close. And people were kind of poo-pooing the Chiefs defense as far as those particular statistics were concerned, and giving heaps and heaps of credit to the Niners for being the far superior defense, when in fact, statistically, they were not. It's pretty much that simple. And I don't know if the Niners read their own headlines. I would think that a team would know better than that. I would think that a coaching staff would know better than to let a team going into a Super Bowl with 2 weeks to prepare to think that their newspaper clippings are all true. But they kind of played that way. There's no way with 2 weeks to prepare for a Super Bowl and you're playing a mobile quarterback that you're not prepared for some sort of an option that has a part of it is him running. Especially, like you said, when you play Russell Wilson twice a year and you've played Lamar Jackson. There's no excuse for that. None at all.
That falls back to Saleh, and also what happens as a result of dealing with these mobile quarterbacks, especially, and I saw it in this game, it tires out your defense. I remember, I can go back to Fran Tarkenton, and when you hear the defenders against the Vikings who had to play against Fran Tarkenton talk about how dog-tired they were because he was scrambling left and then he scrambled right and then he scrambled left again. And if you weren't 8 deep in defensive linemen, these guys' tongues were dragging by the end of the game. And I heard our coach say that fatigue was calculated into some of his decisions. He saw, fatigue out there on the field. He talked about a tired defense, especially once they started getting hit deep, and after the Chiefs went into like a little quick hurry up thing, a little quick no huddle and all of that. Right. We could have been doing the same thing. The Niners could have been doing, and that's what I'm talking about at beginning, at what you run when you get that ball in the second half. Even if you run up to the line of scrimmage and call fake signal, try to make them come off sides, you got to continue to attack at least their head. You know what I mean? And I didn't see that. So on that bottom line, I do think we did get our coach. In terms of Garoppolo, if Garoppolo is your version of Kirk Cousins, then okay, you can win with Garoppolo, but he will have to improve, and you will, as an offense, have to be able to handle blitzes better than what you handled them in this particular game, especially in the crucial moments. Okay. He had his, remember we talked about it, his Joe Montana opportunity,
Yeah, at the end of the game, close to the end of the game, he had that opportunity. He could have given them.
And I thought our defense kind of did what I was hoping that they do relative to, I expected that they would give up yards. What I hoped is that they would hold them to field goals in most of the cases, especially because we had done so well in the red zone. But it was in the red zone where the Chiefs began to employ that option. And now people, they're running around. I'm seeing guys pushing guys. You go over there, I got over here. And the next thing I know, they're outflanked. They were constantly outflanked. And so, that's that option. That's that 11 on 11 that you have to have when he runs out there. There's 2 guys out there. Somebody got to have him and somebody got to have him, at least. And so moving forward, that's something that we're going to have to look at across the league with all defenses. Do they have the ability to play 11 on 11, you know, when you have these option mobile quarterbacks? And it looks as if we're going to have more and more of them.
Similar to what I'm talking about when I say when I talk about the preparation for the game on the defensive side for the 49ers and being prepared for that option. On the offensive side, also on the defensive side of for the 49ers, they did have one weakness. It was not a glaring weakness, but I think I mentioned it. I probably just mentioned it in passing because they were so good defensively and they were able to win games, and their defense was most of the time pretty dominant, and they were able to force teams into doing things that they didn't want to do rather than continue to get gashed by what this weakness was. But the one weakness was stopping the run game between the tackles. And the Chiefs, conversely, were prepared. They looked and they studied, and I know they had to look hard because there weren't a lot of weaknesses on this Niners defense. And in fact, if there was one, that was probably the only one, and it wasn't a glaring weakness, but they took advantage of it. Their run game was better than the running team's run game.
You know, it's funny that you say that because on the last touchdown for the Chiefs, that was out of an I formation. They ran it to the weak side. I run that play all the time. It's a stalwart fullback. I formation. Remember I mentioned they do have a fullback. They actually employ. You don't think about that, but that was the thing you have to say about them. They could play multiple styles of offense. You know what I mean? They could go into their power run game, and that was a power run play. You missed that tackle. Once he hits that outside, he's out. Yeah. And they were tired. So now everybody dragging along.
Again, they got outflanked. Again, they got outflanked.
Play. And that's the beauty of that formation, because what happens is, because you got the tight end on the other side, right? But you have an I formation, they tend to lean toward, that side, they move out. And so all of a sudden you may have a tackle, D-tackle on your tackle. The other guy's out there with the wide receiver, but then here comes the fullback leading out. So now your safeties and stuff come up. You got an extra defender because that's a gap. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because your defense is shifted. I love that play. You know what I mean? And I'll look at the defense and go, ooh, they're a little shifted off to that side, and I'll audible into it just because of that. So when I saw that, I was like, ooh. And then again, like you said, they ran the ball well. They ran the ball against the Titans. They shown the ability against the Titans that they could run the clock out running the ball. So you knew that they had that capability. So again, congratulations to the Chiefs. I thought they played a great game. Now I'm gonna play something for you, Ben.
Okay.
Because I might have hexed them. I might have hexed my squad.
Oh God.
I might have hexed us.
Sound like me now.
I know. But look at this. Look at this.
I'm worried about half the beers I've been trying to drink, baby. It's been a long time coming. Because what do? We have to fight. All right. The party.
I actually like that.
I don't know if you see this belt, but man, this belt got something on it. It's got the heavyweight champions of the world, baby. The heavyweight champions of the world. That memorial up there, I see everybody up there in that memorial. The Let nobody know we represent and honor every single veteran that went to war for us in World War I. What's good? What's good right here in the heart of America? Right here in the heart of America. 21 years. How about that? I'm going to walk this one. How about 21 years? Y'all know what that means? Everybody here is thinking, oh, that's what I mean, you know what I mean? Legally get a drink. Yeah. No, 21 years. That's how long it's just been turning for my guy Andy Reid. It's just been turning and turning and turning. And what we do, we unleash a can of whooping on everybody. 24-0. I ain't trying to hear it. Down 10. I ain't trying to hear it. Fourth quarter, 6 and whatever left on the clock. Down 10.
Look.
I knew it. It's your fault. It's all your fault.
That's enough of that.
It's all your fault.
Oh, God.
You made that a thing.
How? How did we make that a thing?
You were like, when I see, then I know that, yep. Only here's the thing. I'm gonna let you off the hook because you referenced it in something that the team that's losing would do. But they used it in a positive form, like, oh, we're down, no big deal. So I kind of let you off the hook on that one. But again, we have another Kelsey brother with a great Super Bowl victory speech. I don't know if that ranks up there with his brother with the Mummers uniform on, but
I think I liked the verbal part of his speech better. I was surprised because when they won the Super Bowl and in the interview right afterwards, he said, we have to fight for our right to Lombardi.
Yes.
And in his speech, he said, party.
Right.
I didn't know which way he was going to go. That would have been a prop bet. You know what I mean?
Right.
Which way is he going to go? Party or Lombardi in the speech?
I think he was going with the original party, but then he realized when he was up there that, hey, Lombardi rhymes with party. And he threw it out there, which was cool. That was cool. That was a spur of the moment. I like that.
You had to give it to him. But I also had to wonder just how fast is Patrick Mahomes, because a lot of guys had a hard time catching up with catching him. I'm like,
I don't think
he's faster than what I'm giving him credit for.
Yeah, he's not extraordinarily fast. He's a shifty runner. I mean, Russell Wilson is not extraordinarily fast either. But they're shifty runners. I think what happened on that particular play, and it kind of goes back to the Titans game when he had the long run for the touchdown. You kind of expect him to step out of bounds, then he doesn't step out of bounds. Then you kind of expect him to slide, but he doesn't slide. And the defenders, because they're afraid to get a helmet-to-helmet or a late hit, they ease up just that little bit. I don't know what else to say about it, to tell you the truth, but I don't think
I thought it's more that once he shows them that option stuff, because they're not really ready for it, they hesitate.
Well, yeah, because
hesitation, and
because nobody is assigned. Remember, I told you, if they run an option with a pitch man, somebody has to know, I got the pitch man, I got the ball carrier. There was confusion there. There was confusion. And that's what that option play is all about. You come at me, I'm letting it go. You run somebody to the pitch man, I'm turning it up. It's pretty simple, but if you're not ready for it, they're going to gas you every time.
One of the things that I also gave credit to the Chiefs for was that when they got to the goal line, they had plays. Okay. They had plays. And symbolic was the play where they lined everyone up in that little stack and everybody spun around like
I loved it.
Like they were an old R&B singer at the Uptown.
I loved it.
And then it turned out to be a simple dive play up the middle.
Yep.
And he didn't score. And I mean, initially he got hit. Then he forced his way, all the way to the end zone. So it turned out to be a simple power play. Lots of dressing, all the stuff that Shanahan is given credit for. They were doing that same stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
But they had a quarterback who had one or two more options than what your quarterback has. You know what I mean? So you got to run. If that's what's got you there, that's why I was so surprised that they didn't, in that second half, just continue to run plays, because I felt they could have got within field goal range with pretty much mostly run plays, as long as they could keep outflanking them or stretching them out and hitting them up the middle. But you got to be in a hurry up, and again, it's one thing if you throw a deep pass and half your receivers are 30 yards downfield. Now, if you're trying to, or if they catch it and they get, let's say it's 20 yards down, they catch it, they get tackled. You got to run everybody 25 yards down the field and set up if you're going to hurry up. But if you only went 6 yards, you know what I mean? Everybody should be in a hurry up. You should have 2-3 plays called. And at this point, that's when, if he's going to be the field general, he's got to be the field general. You know what I mean? It's not, he shouldn't be sitting on the sideline with, 2-3 plays had to have already been called. So, when it's time to ad lib, you got to have an ad lib game. The Chiefs had a better ad lib game.
That goes down to what I said earlier about preparation. If you have to be prepared for every situation, whether it comes up or not. You got to be prepared for it. And you also offensively have to be prepared with plays that you could pull out when you need them. And they didn't seem to have that. The one thing they had was something that they had been doing during the course of the season, which is giving the ball to Debo, running from one side of the field to the other. It worked during the season. It worked in this game. I don't know why the Chiefs had such trouble with it, but it wasn't something that the Niners ran to death during the season, but they did it once or twice per game, almost every single doggone game. If we went back and reviewed every game this season, I would venture to guess that 80% of the games they ran that play at least once in one form or fashion, in maybe a different formation setup. Maybe they started him in motion first. Maybe they had him tight in the slot and he did it, but they ran that play. So for the Chiefs to have so much trouble with it, I know they saw it. I know they had to have some kind of preparation for it. So I would have to give the credit to the Niners offense for just executing it so great. And Kittle was blocking like a beast. And the tight ends block on plays like that is extra important. It's almost as important as the fullback. And they just simply out-executed them on that particular play, regardless of the formation that they ran it out of. But other than that, the Chiefs really didn't really give the Chiefs any real problems, except for the one drive where they ran and passed the ball pretty balanced and they just marched down the field. I think they did it twice where they really just marched down the field. Once they scored a touchdown, once they kicked a field goal, I think that was their first possession in the beginning of the third quarter. They kicked a field goal there. But that was a pretty nice drive. And they had another nice drive where they really just marched down the field. Other than that, it seemed to be a bit of a struggle. And I found myself thinking, they should have ran the ball on this play, or they should have thrown the ball on that play, or, let's go back real quick to the drive before halftime. I went back and I looked at the play-by-play and the box score and stuff. It was 59 seconds left in the game after they got the ball.
And that was after they let the clock run on the Chiefs punt down on that
right. So they could have saved some time,
right,
for
like
a final drive,
at least,
for a final drive to try to get points on the board before the half, on top of knowing that they were going to get the ball in the second half. And I think I said to you while we were watching the game, it seems like they're content to just kind of sit on it because they're not using timeouts and they're not showing any sense of urgency to get the ball down the field to try to get points. So it looks like they're content to just let whatever happens because they know they're going to get the ball back in the second half.
You absolutely did say that. You absolutely did say that. As a matter of fact, I think you were a little frustrated, pissed. You was like, they might as well just took 3 knees if they're going to,
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I said something crazy like that. But you know what I meant, like this.
But it made what you said attitudinally, okay, it made sense. You know what I mean? Because your attitude showed no aggression. So you might as well have took 3 knees and just said, we're going to make you use your time. They didn't even make them use their timeouts because then they start throwing the ball. And then, and even then they had some level of success. Now, again, the Kittle offensive penalty, okay?
OPI, yes.
I told you when I played the virtual game that at some point in the game, I felt like the game was trying to cheat me. And I have my theory, which is you got to be good enough to beat the cheat. Now, what happened with that particular penalty, there was 2 things. One, the question of whether or not he actually interfered when he did that, when he put his arm out, right? And the question was, if you compared that to the the guy from the Vikings, Rudolph.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, where he obviously was in the end zone, did the exact same thing. But then the second part of that was that in each one of those plays, the defender is clawing at them while the ball's in the air. And I'm wondering why nobody's calling defensive pass interference. Because, do you have to like push the guy, make a move? Can you just really be grabbing and clawing all on his clothes while the ball's coming down? Which is why on a natural thing, he's going to put his arm out just to kind of get some space. Now, the veterans back in the day used to have much better technique in hitting you with the short hit.
Michael Irvin,
right? He should teach that clinic to these tight ends because he was great at it. Okay, almost like Bruce Lee with the 2-inch punch.
Right? Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, I understand. Obviously, he put his arm out, but I'm like, there was defensive pass interference on both of those guys, as far as I was concerned, right from the get. That's how you call it. You don't call it different for a tight end. You do for a wide receiver, as far as I'm concerned.
It's crazy. It's crazy. These little gray areas in these rules are funny because you're not supposed to be able, as a defender, you're not supposed to be able to touch. I believe the words in the rule book says touch a receiver once he's beyond 5 yards. Yet we see that quite often.
Constantly.
But it doesn't seem to get called. I think in the referees' minds, there has to be an impeding of a player's progress before they'll actually make a call. So if there's hand fighting, they'll let that go, because if the defender claws at the receiver is also going to try to smack his hands away. That's no call. But if the defender grabs at the receiver's jersey or locks down one of his arms, then it will be called. And the other way, if the receiver is hand fighting, that's no call. But if he straight puts his arm out to create space, then you're going to get the OPI. So they're kind of letting things go on both sides. But if you impede the other player's progress, you're going to get a penalty. Hand fighting does not
and
impede your progress.
defenders had their backs to the ball.
Well,
You know,
you got that call. They made that call. They made that call.
No, I'm talking about on Kittle. You know, they did. You know, they called it on Kittle, but the defender who's clawing at him was not even looking back at the ball at all. You know.
Okay.
Usually, you give them a little bit if there's contact, but at least the defenders turn because he has an opportunity. He has equal access to the ball. It's anybody's ball once it's in the air. You know, so if he even turns like he's looking for the ball, then he'll get the benefit of the doubt in most cases for pass interference. In both of those cases, Rudolph and Kittle, that didn't happen. The guy just simply had it back to the ball. You know, so you're right. There's the rules, and then there's how these rules are being actually called on the field relative to that. But it was big. In most games, there are 2 or 3 winning plays, especially on tight games. You either make the play or you don't make the play. Chiefs got a 3rd and 16. They make the play. They had the other one with they hit deep to Tyreek Hill. They made that play. We have the Kittle catch, did not make that play. For whatever reason, refs are not. And then you have your deep pass over the middle, which I'm like, okay, is this what they called out? Because as far as I'm concerned, what you wanted there was a first down. I think a first down was more valuable. Well, let's put it this way. It should have been at least a higher probable than that particular play. Although that play would have been a beautiful dagger, it would have been a beautiful thing had he hit it. And you got to give him kind of credit for going for it. But to me, at this point, you're playing the game on 2 levels. You're playing the time game and the possession game, to get what you need to get done. And when you throw that ball out there, that's a lower probability. I mean, they have those statistics that say, this has a probability of, versus that. And I think that's a low probability. So that was my only problem with that.
I think they called that play because they thought they saw something. They thought they had something. And in fact, they did. And he just overthrew it.
It's hard to play. It's a hard play.
Hindsight says,
it's the reason why when they make the play, everybody gets so excited because it's a low probability throw, So that's why everybody.
It's also called it also can be considered a great call. Oh, great call.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Right. When they complete it, it's like, oh, it's so great.
Right.
So they overcame that probability,
Right.
But
so hindsight says, well, they probably had enough time to continue to drive, and they should have focused on getting the first down and continuing to drive. But I feel like, and I don't remember exactly how much time was left at that moment, but I know it was getting late, and I know they were feeling some desperation, and those things come into play.
Yeah, and I'll say the same thing that I said about the run play. You make your first down, you only need 10 yards. It's easy to hurry up at that point because you only got to move everybody up 10 yards. You know what I mean?
Well, when you
come back, you can stay in a hurry up.
When you talk about the hurry up, first of all, I know you love the hurry up. And you don't have to have a mobile quarterback to run the hurry up because Tom Brady does it all the time.
Absolutely.
You've made that very clear. Okay, but you're kind of talking about a bit of a coaching philosophy that Kyle Shanahan obviously just does not have.
I'm simply pointing it out.
So, if they could have brought all the TV cameras and the crowd down there and let you play the Super Bowl on Madden, then we would have seen that and we would be saying, hey, y'all great. But unfortunately, Kyle Shanahan's job was to do that, and he didn't get it done.
The funny thing about Madden is that when you're playing and you have people watching the game, like sitting there with you,
okay,
they see so much
that
you don't see.
Yeah, it's always like that.
It's crazy.
It's always like that.
You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
can see probably even as the coach on the sideline when you're coaching out there and
All
you're
the
looking
time.
and you're like, you got 3 guys open. You didn't see him. But
Yeah, somebody will always walk up to me and go, so-and-so had the out over there on the opposite side of the field. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah. hey, it's too late now. But
that's why you can run the same play,
yes,
especially out of different formations, because
yes,
on any passing play, you could easily have 5, 4, at least 3 to 4 good passing options.
yes.
You know, even if these 2 guys is squaring it in and that guy's going post, you got 3. You're gonna be the short end, the deep end, or overside, and you can run the same play because if they line up different, then he becomes the primary or he becomes the primary.
True.
And so you basically can, and that's the beauty of the hurry up, is that it's about knowing a few plays that you can beat somebody up with. And that flanker, that end around that you're talking about, and you're saying you don't know why. Let me tell you, what I see that is actually an option play. When you bring that guy in motion and he's coming across, first of all, you now read the defense because they're either in the zone or in the man. They're going to decide. You see the alignment of that outside guy and the corner out there. If the corner is wide out and he's playing back, you got a big A space right there. If they shift over, then you got the option to hand it to the dive man and hit right up in that gap. So it's a play that exposes the defense, and you have at least 2 handoff options on that play. It's a beautiful thing. The way I run it that's different is I make Kittle my slot man, and I put the other tight end, and I'm in a single back situation. So I'll put even Juszczyk or any of those in at the other tight end situation. So now you're actually running a power play, and you're giving it to Kittle on a run. I really don't think they took full. I understand Kittle is great as a blocker, but you can run 2 tight ends because you have Kittle. Kittle is a wideout, and you got to understand that where you put him, you dictate to the defense. They'll double Kittle. So you put Kittle in the slot, you automatically force their alignment, But if you got him lined up to block all the time, and I understand there's a running play, but you can be a running play with him in that situation because you can motion him to the side. Now it's a real strong side because you got 2 tight ends over there now. So it's a lot of things you can do with them that I don't think they're doing.
Well, I think when we're talking about that particular play, it makes more sense to them to use Deebo Samuel because although they executed the play extremely well, every time pretty much every time they did it.
It's still a good play, Deebo Samuels or Kittle.
But you have an advantage using Samuel because of his speed and shiftiness that Kittle doesn't have. If you run Kittle, it's basically a power play. And you have to decide, is he going to cut it up or is he going to take it wide? Deebo has more speed to get it successfully out wide, and he also has faster and quicker feet if he needs to cut it inside. And he has a real good feel for it, which is why it's such a great play for them when they use him.
You're absolutely right. And, there's always the pro and the con of it.
And also,
you're absolutely right.
Also, during the season, they ran it a lot with him coming in motion, but in the Super Bowl, they didn't. They went set, looked at the defense right away. Oh, yeah, we're good. And then all he had to do was decide, was he going to cut it up or was he going to take it wide? They just lined him up tight, and he came on the snap of the ball, and they just blew him off the line, created holes. Even the one where he had it in his mind he was going to take it out wide, and they were ready for that one, and there was this humongous hole, and he was able to cut back and still get really good yardage on that play. So it's just a shame that that was the most successful play that they really had in their arsenal. It's kind of crazy. Raheem Mostert, coming off of that 200 plus something game on the ground. 200 yards on the ground, that's phenomenal, okay? Nobody expected him to do that again. But the man's got to get more than 12 carries. They're a running team. And your star running back got 12 carries. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. They shot themselves in the foot on that one. And we both have said we thought they should have run the ball more, especially in particular situations when they could have sustained drives if they just ground it out. And they didn't, but your number one back getting 12 carries, that's not, you can't.
Well, this is the thing, and you've heard me talk about this before. I talk about having a power game. Sometimes I call it bully ball, because up front is where the bullying actually happens.
That's their strength.
Well, you pointed out that defensively the Chiefs actually were better. And so when you added Frank Clark in the middle, when you added Suggs on that D line, you actually put together a pretty nice line, okay? And so, where it maybe the question is, okay, it's our strength, but is it stronger than their strength? When it come time to run that bully ball thing, are you confident that you can bully them? And that's what you didn't see, especially at the end of the first half.
Confidence in something that you've been doing all year, and you lose confidence to do it in the Super Bowl, then yeah, Kyle Shanahan, you got out-coached. That's ridiculous. I don't care if they brought Reggie White back for that game. I don't care. This is what we do, and we're going to impose our will on you until you prove that you can stop it. Tevin Coleman had a couple good runs early and never saw the field again.
You said
Reed is sitting on the sideline clapping his hands and patting people on the back. What happened to that three-headed monster? You're right. Okay, I'll come back. I'll say it. Yes, Kyle Shanahan got out-coached. Not just in game situation, should have did this, should have did that, didn't do this, didn't do that. They weren't prepared. I don't think they were prepared and still had an opportunity to win the game.
All right. I'm done beating up on the Super Bowl at this particular point. I want to mention that we will probably, what I'd like to do is take a break, maybe a week or so. I want to go back and really look at the net point rankings over the years, pull our totals together, see what the actual season-wide average was, because it is a grand experiment. And I have to finish the calculations. You got to do the calculations on this stuff, and the numbers will be what they are. So we'll have a chance to do that. There are some things coming up on the NFL calendar. We talked about the Players Association contract. I did hear today. Now I heard this from one of the morning football shows, where I think he mentioned that March 28th is a date for them to either have completed the contract. I'm trying to look up my notes here, so I'm going to put an asterisk around, but I'm pretty sure this is right. And he said if they don't have it done by then it goes on hold for like a year or something like that.
We're talking about the Players Association, reference to the money that the NFL is given.
New union agreement with the league, the Players Association.
What? Wait. Okay, I'm confused. We talking about the CBA?
Yes.
Okay.
So they have to have something done, agreed to by the 28th, or it gets tabled.
Okay.
I understand. So we want to keep an eye out for what leads up to that date. I still put my question out there: will Mahomes be the first $50 million a year NFL player?
Oh, that money's coming. They can table this, and that money's coming. That TV money ain't going to be stopped. So those owners are going to have to deal with it. And believe me, they're not going to be shedding too many tears because the rich get richer. That
Also, next week, I want to throw this out now just for us both to look at. There's some coaching movements happening. They're naming they named one of my defensive coordinators or coaches. I think he's going to the Browns. That is an area that adds into the whole difficulty of getting back to the Super Bowl.
yes,
Because whether you're the winner or the loser, now everybody kind of wants your Super Bowl soul, and they can figure they can get a little bit of it if they can bring one of your coordinators over and all of that kind of stuff. So next thing you know, and we saw it with the Eagles. I thought it was pronounced when they lost their offensive coordinator. He went and became the head coach for the Colts.
Frank Reich.
And then Frank Reich, and it had an effect on that offense when we saw Kyle Shanahan leave Atlanta and come to the Niners. We saw an impact on that offense.
Absolutely.
So these things do have an impact, and now all of a sudden it's not the same team because it's not the same brain trust, much less the movement of the players that's getting ready to come on. We do have the combine coming up in March. So, looking forward to some of that stuff. The XFL is going to kick off like this week, right?
I believe it's this weekend. I'm pretty sure.
It might be tonight for all I know. And I really didn't prepare much for the XFL. I'm a little NFL burnt out, but I'll be on it. I will not be doing any Sterling net point rankings. I think I'm going to institute a rule that you have to survive at least 1 year as a league before I'll even consider you.
Yeah. We're not going to waste any time on it. Yeah, please. And you know what? I hope they do. I really hope they do. And I frowned on this spring professional football thing before, but now I kind of want to see them get it right.
Well, I hope they do also. But I'm more because I think that it's just that many more opportunities for our young men to get paid to play football. The AFFL, it was a $225,000 3-year contract. I'm like, a young man can get his life together in 3 years with $80,000 a year. You know what I mean? He's not getting the multi-million dollars, but he's making more than the average guy who's getting $15 an hour at these jobs out here. Now he's at least on a professional level, like, someone that maybe has a degree, that has a top level job. And you got a 3-year contract. Not to say you can't make it a 6-year contract if the league had lasted. You have the Canada, okay. The league is bringing in some people now in from Canada. I understand there's a quarterback that's coming in from Canada, from the Canadian League. And then you have the advent of the International Football League that's happening, much less the expansion of the NFL potentially.
Right.
You've got the suitors from Canada who's saying, bring a pro team to Canada. And you have the suitors from England who say, bring one to England. But then on the mainland Europe, there's a whole international football league that's going on. And I was trying to look into it, but they're getting paid too, so they're it might be regular job. It might be more like $15 an hour, but you're getting paid $15 an hour rather than mopping the floor to play football.
Right.
So I like the fact that it's expanding the opportunity for these guys to get paid. And then also remember, you have the organizations behind. So there's a lot of other jobs and other things that are created, when you have this professional expansion of the game. My son's over 30 now, so I don't know if he's if he would be looking out going, maybe I want to. But guys that he played with, the Salmons brothers and stuff, they played a little arena ball. You know what I mean? So, a little bit of money that's coming in sometimes, maybe not a lot. Guys might need some extra jobs or something like that. But it's an opportunity to get paid for playing football. So that's pro ball,
Yes, it is.
Maybe semi-pro or whatever. All right. let's get ready to knock this out. We have our Facebook page. We're gonna run through a few things here. Well, this was such a touching story. I actually got a little emotional looking at this story. It's so great to see, you know, that they're doing this. Okay, get out of here, you. But I didn't really see the commercial during the game. So I wound up going back and watching it on YouTube, okay? His name is Maxwell Bunchy Young. So Bunchy likes to color his hair and do stuff like that. But Bunchy had 61 touchdowns in the season. Plus he's a killer on the in track. And was good enough to get a college offer from Illinois at the age of 10.
Yes.
So Bunchy ain't no joke. And so when I finally went back and watched the commercial, and the first person that you see Bunchy running, and you look over and it's Jim Brown. I'm like, uh-oh. You know, so what's going on with this? But I didn't see this part of it where he brought the ball out, you know, and all of that. But I thought it was just, it was awesome. I really enjoyed the commercial. Probably one of my favorite, and I missed it. So,
yeah, it's a really good commercial. I don't remember the commercial playing while we were watching the game. I think we might have been eating or something. But I thought I remembered him running the ball out of the tunnel. And I'm thinking to myself, that kid looks familiar. And then after I saw the commercial, that's when I realized it was Bunchy, a guy that I've been watching on YouTube for the last year and a half. And he is this kid.
So you knew about Bunchy already?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yes. I've been watching him every once in a while when I'm bored. I go on YouTube and I'll look at old, you know, high school clips from Iverson or Reggie Bush or something. You know what I mean? And then when you do that, you start getting these other clips popping up, and they're like youth football phenomenon. You know, I'm like, oh, okay, let me look at this. And they got Bunchy on there, a lot of it.
Wow, didn't know that. Awesome.
He's got moves. He's got speed. He runs track. Kid's phenomenal, man. They can barely touch this guy. Can barely touch him. So hopefully we'll be hearing about him again in a few years in high school and in college, and we'll see what happens. But that's worth remembering his name. There's some other kids out there that are really young right now that are showing some skills that may, you know, continue to develop, and they end up being the next great ones out there. But
well,
okay.
Let me use that as a segue to another kid.
Okay.
Quentin Core. This is the NFL's Play 60 super kid. He got to bring the ball in the second half.
Right.
This young man has a YouTube channel already. He's already on his YouTube channel. He's got interviews with Richard Sherman. We might need to call him for some advice.
He's good.
You seen him before too?
No, but I'm talking about when he conducted his interview. The kid's really good. Speaks well, knows the content, asks great questions.
Do you know what his sport is though?
No, I don't know him. No.
Golf.
Oh, I love it.
Golf. He's talking to Richard Sherman. He's asking Richard Sherman about golf, about his golf game. Richard Sherman got a little weak, but he didn't have much golf game to brag about. All the bragging he likes to do.
Yeah, his golf game is off.
It's like, well, kid, you know. But it was a great interview. So again, two young men. I'll point out young African-American men. The future of the league is going to be very diverse. And I think that it's going to make some changes. Did you want to mention Willie Wood? Anything about the passing of Willie Wood?
Just that another great player, Hall of Famer, has passed on. I'm sure some of the guys from those old Packer teams that are still around speak very reverently of him. He was a mainstay on that Packers dynasty, and oh, look at that. Yeah, him and Herb Adderley back in the day when I was a youngin'. I used to love him, and I used to love Herb Adderley, man. Those guys were like such great D-backs, almost ahead of their time.
Philly guy.
Oh, Herb Adderley, definitely. He went to the
Philly
old
guy, and I guess you and I kind of followed a similar path or a trail relative to looking at the Packers, because as I tell you, Bart Starr was the first football player that I ever recognized as a football player. You know, it's like, you know, what are those people doing on TV? Oh, that's football. Oh, who's that? Bart Starr. Oh, you know,
Bart Starr. Right. You go, Bart Starr
hit me in the brain.
I need to watch him.
You know, I have watched enough Westerns in my world that the name Bart meant something to me as a kid. At least the cartoon Westerns that we always watched, there was always a black Bart, bad guy, you know, with all black on coming in. So when I heard Bart, I'm like, you know what I mean? And so now I'm watching the Packers just because, you know. But hey, yeah, sad. That generation that we watched that were men when we were kids, that's kind of who we're losing now.
Right.
You know? And so that makes it difficult. All right. We always talk about the social aspect. As we always say, football is life. Had you heard this, that Jay-Z had gotten the NFL to commit an additional $100 million to criminal justice reform?
Yes, I did hear that. And as you have here, that makes a total of 188 million. Now, is this money, because you're on top of this a little bit better than I am, is this money going to be handed over to the players' coalition for them to determine how it's best used? Is it a joint effort as to how this money is best used? Do you know anything about that?
That is an excellent question, and no, I don't know.
Okay, let's look into that.
You know, Jay-Z comes in as a special entity in and of itself to the NFL, but I do suspect that he will work in conjunction with the players' coalition,
right?
Who got the original 88 million.
Right.
But even if it's going out through two different programs, that's 188 million. Now, the question I always have is, how is it deployed?
That's my question. How?
You know, my thoughts on how I'd like it deployed is to provide access to attorney and legal services for those people who have had these violent encounters with law enforcement.
Yes.
Now they're up against an institution.
Yes.
So, you know, the only way you can be up against an institution is to have, you know, a lot of money to avoid.
And it's insult to injury.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, but they also have a lot, you know, we know the Players Coalition, we've been to their website. We've seen that they're in the court system. They're trying to affect legislation at local levels, you know, and dealing with that type of thing. So if we find out, we'll take a look at that and we'll get back to, you know, we'll post something on our Facebook page, on our Twitter page.
Yeah, that's.
And it might be in that article, because that is an article there, you know, and I do read those things sometimes cursively, but I do read through those things. But the main thing is that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money, and you have these professional football players who are very interested in the issues, and they're very close to being on the ground. Well, they are on the ground in the cities that they play in, okay, and most of those cities have urban areas, and most of those cities, if not all of them, have faced these problems from time to time. So if these guys are going to be point men by being on the Players Coalition, they're going to be point men with having their ideas and seeing what the problems are in the particular cities and the areas where they're either from or where they actually play. I would think that they should have the majority of the input to determine how the money's allocated.
One of the things,
but generally speaking, sorry, cut you off. But generally speaking, the idea that you came up with the access of attorneys for people who have encountered some of these social injustices, I think, is a major thing that needs to be addressed, regardless of what cities we're talking about.
The NFL also has a theme going on called Inspire Change, and I just took a quick look. I think that Jay-Z might be more with whatever that program is.
Okay.
That program seems to be some level of an oversight program, tying together a lot of the player foundations that the individual players have. A lot of these guys, they're making so much money, they have their own foundations and they have their own little thing that they do, you
right.
know, out in the community. But, you know, that's the smart business way to do it. You make a foundation, I guess it's tax deductible or whatever, but long story short, it helps to fund, you know, their programs. So if Jay-Z is connected to that, and then they're connected to a lot of what those players' foundations are, a lot of that money might go to some of those players' foundations that are out there in the community. I know the Niners are D lineman, Buckner, I believe it was. They were saying he was in the school. He paid for these kids to go to special writing programs. He went with them, you know, and so he's, you know, doing a lot of work like on that level, you know what I mean, in the classroom, you know, much less Players Coalition that they're going into the courts, you know, so they're really out there. So congratulations on that. However, I'm hoping that it does get positive, you know, get some positive results out of that and really help some people in the community. All right. Okay. Since we are in a social situation, this came up, and I'm assuming this is not fake news, but I haven't heard anyone in the media talk about it. Travis Kelce took a knee.
I don't think you haven't heard anything in the news about it, because I believe it's fake news. I believe
it's fake news.
I believe that this picture was taken like last year or 2 years ago or something. I think this is old. They're trying to make it seem like he knelt during the anthem at the Super Bowl. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what it seemed like they were trying to say. Now, this is SB Nation, so this isn't, you know, they're a pretty big organization. Not to say that they can't pass on some fake news. I gave them that level of credibility. I'll look into it. If it is, it'll come down. I'll take care of that. But I just thought that was interesting, and I wondered why I had not heard anything. So let's call it us reporting on a potential fake news report out on Kelce. And, you know, we're not trying to throw any shade at him. That, you know, I'd have been like, okay, go Kelce if that's what you're doing. But I hadn't heard anything, and that's what made it intriguing to me, that it was out there and it had that label on him. You know, maybe it's a fake SB Nation, and you know they got a lot of that kind of stuff going on now. The fake news thing is an international effort nowadays, man. You got all types of stuff. But
Yeah,
that's
it's crazy.
All right, let me click the link. Let me just see where it takes us on the link here.
The SB Nation report is actually saying that this happened during the Super Bowl, and that
Oh, look. No, look.
several players.
Look at that. Look at the date on this article. It says
Yeah, there you go.
2017.
2017.
So that's a previous Super Bowl. Oh, he wasn't in
They
no
weren't
Super Bowl.
in any other Super Bowls.
So
Wasn't a Super Bowl at
it
all.
doesn't say Super, it says national anthem anyway. So I'm dumb.
Right.
You know, it doesn't even say Super Bowl. So that's interesting that they threw that out there. SB Nation threw that out there, whether it's a legit picture or not. It was an attempt, I guess, to get some buzz, and they got the buzz. But that's old news. That's old news, man. I don't like that. All right. That'll be out of here, ladies and germs. Next, what do we have? Is that it?
I don't know. Is that it? That's all
Well,
you have in your social
we
media?
normally will share. Hold on a second. Our social media as we close it out. So let's do that. And remind people that in addition to having Facebook pages, we do have a Twitter page. This was the Bias Plus report that we put out for the game, where that was favorite to the 49ers. So that's what we had to live with. Did you kick yourself for going with the bias?
No.
Good stuff. Good, man.
No,
Good.
not at all. Because like I said, they had ample opportunities to win that game. Even late in the game, they had chances to win the game, but they just didn't come through. I mean, we've seen them come through in similar situations during the season, but for some reason they couldn't pull it off. You know, if they connect on that long pass to Sanders, maybe it's a completely different narrative. So it's a shame it would have to come down to that, but I think we both agree that although I was trying to show Shanahan a little bit of love by not actually coming out and saying that he got out-coached, that they did in fact get out-coached. They got out-prepared, and they got out-coached during the game.
Quick question. Statistically now, in the 2 Super Bowls that he's coached, he's had large come-from-behind losses where, all of a sudden he collapsed against the Patriots. Then there's the collapse against the Niners. They pointed it out. And when you put his totals together, it's rather depressing for that time period. What do you think about that?
I'm not sure that that's fair to put all of that on him.
That is his record. It is what it is.
Well, see, and this is something that we probably need to talk about at some later date, but saying that that's his record is kind of the same as saying certain wins and loss records are a quarterback's record. We tend to say, well, he won this, that, and the other, but we got to remember it's a team sport. A lot of things went wrong in that game. A lot of them can be attributed to offensive play calling, which with the Falcons, he was the offensive coordinator. And of course he was the head coach in the recent Super Bowl.
I think his decision not to call that shotgun play where his quarterback got sacked and the ball came out in the hole, as opposed to simply running the ball back then, is almost up there with the Seahawks decision not to give it to beast mode at the goal line.
I do not compare them.
You don't compare them?
Hell no.
Oh, man, are you serious?
No.
In that game, all his quarterback had to do
run that ball on the freaking
field goal range. What are you talking about?
They were on a half-inch line.
Dude,
You
look,
could have ran that
don't
in.
go into a shotgun and get fancy in that situation. Now you got to play just like in this situation where you said you needed to run the ball. Even if you get nothing, the act of running the ball is enough so that you keep your field position, you kill the clock,
I
and
understand.
you get that field goal, and you win the game.
I understand the importance of what you're saying. I am not disagreeing with you that it was extremely important for them to have done something other than what they did. But they still could have won the game. Not running beast mode on that play, you barely just handed them the game. You snatched victory from the jaws of defeat.
That's a coaching
You
decision.
snatched defeat
Listen
from the jaws
to
of
you know
victory.
something? You're conflicted because you want to be nice to these people, and you're
No.
sense is rebelling. You're like,
obviously that was a bad play, but they survived it and could have still won the game. There was no surviving that Seahawks play. That ended the game.
well, it also exhibited a defensive collapse. I do put a lot on our defense. As you say, it's a team game. You give up 2 or 3 deep plays. You fail to learn to play 11 on 11 option defense. Then we all know that in the last quarter of the season, we gave up on average a whole lot more points than what we gave up in the first half to 3/4 of a season. It was almost a prelude to the Super Bowl in that we looked great in the first 3 quarters. And that last quarter, we kind of didn't look so great. And we got taken advantage of by a lot of teams. We gave up a lot of points. We gave up a lot of yards. But we had some injuries and things, and I really felt like we were healthy enough, as healthy as you could want to be as a defense coming into the Super Bowl. And I'll say this last thing. And Kelsey, Mahomes, both mentioned that Andy Reid told them to be in Miami Beach shape so that when they went down there, now it wasn't hot. It was like 62 degrees.
Right.
But, 62, you're overheated. And again, when you're not playing good 11 on 11, now you're hesitating. You're not the aggressive dog that you were. And if you're going to be a dog, you have to be a dog under control, So, again, defensively, I thought that, we just like at the end of the season where we kind of got shown that teams could move the ball on us and score on us. They moved the ball on us. They scored on us, and that's how you lose the game. So, it's a lot to go around. The next question, once you've identified some of these things, you said, okay, is this who we are? How do we grow from this? Garoppolo's still wearing that brace on his knee, so he's still not as mobile as, I don't know if Patrick Mahomes had a brace on his knee. He's a much more agile looking runner anyway, or scrambler, but that's something that Garoppolo is going to have to, and so this is the question. Will Shanahan at some point want to employ a more mobile type quarterback? Kirk Cousins ain't that. He's more like Garoppolo.
Stop talking about Kirk Cousins, please.
That's who we wanted.
That's old news, dude. That's super old news.
It's old news that could come back to haunt you if you, for whatever reason, he turns around and does something like that. And you go, why would you go get Kirk Cousins? Because you knew he was in love with him 2 years ago. In any event,
there was 8 teams in love with Kirk Cousins. Everybody was after Kirk Cousins. Everybody. There was plenty of teams that really believed that Kirk Cousins was the answer to their problems. That's not an issue.
Was any of those teams in the Super Bowl?
That's not an issue. That's not an issue right now.
All right, but my question was more, will San Fran at some point consider moving toward a more mobile quarterback? Can you imagine if you had a Russell Wilson with that running game, for example?
Yes, I can imagine that, and it would be wonderful. Okay, but coaches make their decisions on what they know, what they're used to, what they're comfortable with, and sometimes they see the trends, and some guys wait to see how the trend plays out, and some guys like to be on the front row, i.e. the Baltimore Ravens. Okay, Shanahan grew up with his dad on the sidelines, watching quarterbacks that played for the Washington team that needs to change their name and the Denver Broncos. Think about those quarterbacks. The only one who had any semblance of real running ability and scrambling ability was probably John Elway. And even then, that was at the end of his career when he could barely move anymore. Okay, we're talking about Elway, Manning. We're talking about him coaching and being the offensive coordinator for the Falcons with Matt Ryan. This is what he knows. This is what he schemes for. These are the kind of quarterbacks that he likes. So if he decides somewhere along the line he's going to get a more mobile quarterback, then he'll do it. And if he doesn't, then he won't. But if the trend continues like it has been, chances are he will have to face that fact. But we'll see. I mean, this is a wide receiver draft coming up this year. So there's going to be receivers flying off the board early all over the place. The quarterback crop, I don't want to say it's strong, but there's some good quarterbacks coming out. But only a few of them are really mobile. So, again, and none of them are Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray. There's nobody like that as far as I know. I haven't done my full homework coming up on the combine, but we'll find out. But there's nothing like that coming out. So where are you going to get these guys from? You know, they're not a dime a dozen. So this is what he's got. This is what he's known. This is what he schemes for. So until something else comes and knocks him over the head, this is what you're going to have.
I don't have a problem, again, with Garoppolo, but Garoppolo has to improve his game.
Absolutely. Dude, you know this is only his second full season of his career.
Well, he has to become a better full, field general. And, yeah, it's his second season. Patrick Mahomes ain't much further off than having that much more, maybe one more season than him. So, we see what could be. So he's, but
there's a difference.
If you're not going to be a mobile quarterback, then that's where you have to have a strength. Because the guys who aren't, they might not be the greatest field general, but they can run past you, get that first down, and keep the chains moving.
All right, now I'm going to do you like you do me. Did they lose the game because Garoppolo's not mobile? No.
Well,
it would have helped, but no.
The way you put it, the answer is
no. Same way you put it when you said, did any of those teams that wanted Kirk Cousins make it to the Super Bowl? It's the same thing.
I'm saying the way you put the question, the answer is no.
Okay.
But if you change the question and said, could they have won it if he were a little more mobile? If in that moment that he did decide to run out and he had the one guy to beat and he didn't know what to do, he didn't know whether to slide, he didn't know what, because he was like, I can't do nothing with this. Now we know Patrick Mahomes, that guy would have been petrified. That one guy out in the island, with him coming at him, would have been petrified. So yeah, you're right. No, we didn't lose it because he wasn't mobile, but could we have won it if you had that additional option in your offense?
It's possible.
The craziest thing would be right now, and I'm going to just say this out of pure craziness, is if you saw Colin Kaepernick in tryouts with the Niners.
But why would you even mention that? Why would you even?
Well, because he is that mobile quarterback. He obviously can still throw. If he were to come back into the system and be accepted, I think it would happen in San Francisco easier than any other franchise. And he could back up Garoppolo. He would have to come in as a backup. Now, I don't know if his pride would allow him to do that, but if he could come in as a backup, learn the system, you know, the whole mobile quarterback thing, one of the more creative teams there, I believe, is the Saints, because they're the one team who successfully deployed a pocket quarterback and a mobile quarterback. I think they did a pretty good job of integrating that situation, which I don't think that's easy. That's like running two different systems. But when you're in 3rd and 1, and all of a sudden you can put an option on that play, it just makes it so hard on the defense. It really, really does. And so you pretty much know you're not going to see that. But there's other ways, other types of options, just like there's a run pass option where, the quarterback's not going to run. But his option is to hand it off or throw the ball. So you have the types of plays where he can be successful, but he's going to have to do better against the blitz. He's going to have, when I say field general, he's going to have to come up on that line and make those adjustments and get that ball out to his outlets and things at a much better pace than what he was doing. If Kittle on one thing released and he's standing there doing like this, and he looked like Kirk Cousins.
Dude, please stop.
All right, I'm going to stop. Dude, in addition to our Twitter page, we have an Instagram page. And if you go to www.benandbarryonfootball.com, you will go to our YouTube page where all of our videos are. And Ben, we talked about maybe having your baby girl Desiree come in on the show where maybe we can have her
Can't do much about it.
even comment on the controversial wedding.
Check the NFL calendar. Make that a part of your planning. Avoid Sundays, but hey, if it had been division weekend, it would have been Saturday games that we,
No, I don't care if it's regular season.
That's probably a good night. And I hear Friday is a discount night, so you can save some money on Friday.
I'm trying to help.
Sunday. That's not talking to somebody. They told me that there was a 2 discount days. Sunday and Friday.
Look, let's face it. It all boils down to if you care about football or not. That's what it all boils down to. If you talk to somebody who likes football and cares about football and watches football, something like this would never even be considered. And if in fact it was considered, it would be quickly squashed or at least severely debated. Okay? But when you got two people that really don't care about football, even if one of them even mentioned it because they know their uncle's crazy about football, they'd be like, well, they're going to play. That's championship week. And the other one goes, yeah, but we're getting a discount. Yeah, you're right. You know what I mean? You just roll over real quick. It's cool.
Ben, you know what this reminds me of? The saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Now, you, me, and our crew, right?
Yeah.
If we went to our crew and say, yeah, man, we getting married. Right, when? Next week. That's Championship Sunday. You ain't getting married next week. Oh, you better have to change that, buddy, because that ain't working. What are you doing? Are you crazy? Can you imagine the rebuke and the scorn you would get from
Right.
the guys right in the crew? You would grow up right there as a man and realize, like, you're right. You can't do that. That makes no sense.
Right, but a person that doesn't care about football is not going to go, you're right. They're going to go, well, yeah, but.
But if he didn't really care about football and he said it to us, we would instill that care in him. We would make him understand it's not
change the date of the wedding.
Us. We want to come to your wedding. Why would you do that to us? We would make him understand. And then everybody's so self-centered. They're all self-centered because, yes, you're getting married. But out in that audience is 30, hopefully 40, 50, 100 people. What about them? What about them?
You can't tell me that the word football didn't come up somewhere along the line when this thing was being planned. They don't care. They don't care. It's cool. I still went. And
the interesting thing is, I even spoke to some of my neighbors down the street. They came up for a couple minutes, and they're both football fans. But it did not diverge male to female, because the first thing she said was, "Oh no, you don't do that." Now they're diehard Eagle fans, right? But long story short, she was the first one. And most women that I've talked to, they're really the ones who are saying, "No, you don't do that," are really outnumbering the ladies who, like my wife, were like, "What are you talking about? You don't even, that wouldn't be a thought. Like, you don't even include that in the decision-making process."
Right.
My wife is beginning to look like a lone stranger with that side of the fence. Because I've been hearing a lot of ladies going, "Oh, no, you don't do that. You don't do that.
You don't do that. You just don't. You just don't." But hey.
All right. The Super Bowl review show is about to close down. And when we about to close the show, I ask you, any last words?
Well,
Mighty deep subject.
I actually do have two things to say real quick, because they're on my mind and I keep seeing them and thinking about them. And I just have to say, I feel bad for the Niners defense. I think they were really up against it, but being not as well prepared for that option look was more deadly to them than we're letting on, or at least I'll speak for myself, that I'm letting on. And even though I said that it was important and that I thought it was not a good thing for them not to be prepared for it, it took something out of them and allowed the Kansas City offense to be more successful on more drives than they would have been if, in fact, they were prepared for it, which correlates to the problems that they had at the end of the game and the big plays. The Kansas City Chiefs only really completed 2 long pass plays, maybe 3, but 2 that stand out to me. The one to Tyreek Hill and the one to Sammy Watkins. The one to Tyreek Hill was a complete blown coverage, period, end of conversation. I don't care if you're playing little league ball, flag football, tackle football. You got a 3-deep zone, your corners and one of your safeties have 1/3 of the field deep. And the corner got his eyes locked on a guy running a crossing pattern from the X position and did not peep the slot man running the post corner, got behind him. Huge play, probably snatched the last little bit of momentum that was out there for the Niners to have to come back and win the game. The other one, I'm only mentioning because it happened to Richard Sherman, who had a really good season after people were saying he lost his step, he's not going to be that good anymore. Had a really good season, still gets a lot of respect from NFL quarterbacks that don't throw his way a lot, although they are testing him a little bit more than they used to because he's obviously getting older, okay? But for the most part in that game, he handled his business. He did not get burned. He was not getting busted up. He made some tackles, okay? But he got turned around on one play, and he did get burned, and it was a big play, and now people are roasting him on the tails of the little beef with Darrelle Revis, and I think that's unfair. He played a really good game, and he got beat on one play. So in his defense, specifically, and in the defense's defense, generally speaking, that blown coverage probably had something to do with some other things that the Chiefs were doing that had them leery. There's still no excuse for that guy not being in his deep third. You know what I mean? But there were some things that the Chiefs were successful with that they shouldn't have been successful with if, in fact, the Niners defense was better prepared, that made that guy leery and had him watching a wide receiver going on a crossing route instead of staying in his back pedal and getting back to his deep third. And again, you know, Sherman.
One of the things that'll make you make that mistake is a mobile quarterback.
Okay. Whatever it is, yes, and his mobility made those option plays work, and those option plays was something that they weren't prepared for, and therefore, thus and so, If they have success with something that you're not prepared for, that allows them to have positive plays. They have positive plays. It keeps drives alive. They keep drives alive. They can be more diverse with their play calling. Boom, 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 boom. It just gets worse and worse and worse. If you take something away that they were expecting to work, or something away that's a staple of their offense, now they have to dig deep and look for something else. Now you can play defense more comfortably because you know I'm ready for that. So I don't have to worry so much about that. So now I know I got deep third. Okay, I may be making excuses for the guy, but let me be clear. There is no excuse to be a corner in a 3-deep zone and not get back and cover your third. There is no excuse.
Especially when
they have been influenced.
Is the number one receiver.
Right. But actually, Tyreek Hill's the number one receiver who caught the ball. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I get what you're saying. You're absolutely right. If Tyreek Hill is in the slot on your side of the field, you and the safety got to forget the corner on the other side. You and the safety got to be like, yo, he's over here. So he's either going to run something short and quick, or he's going to try to get behind me in my third, or he's going to try to bust the safety up the seam.
At least you got to be aware.
You got to be aware.
That's all I'm saying.
Why you're watching Kendrick Bourne run a crossing route is beyond me. But what are you going to do? Other than that, I got nothing.
Well, again, congratulations. They are a team who has an obvious speed advantage, which is, that's what they're built on. Congratulations to Bieniemy and for his part in, constructing and running that game that day, because like I said, a lot of times you look over and Andy Reid ain't talking to nobody. He's just standing there and Bieniemy's going off in the headphones. So right. What that he's communicating, with them. And so that's why I always talk about the brain trust for the teams, and they were much more agile that day. Okay. Beyond that, you said you had two things. What else was it?
Well, that was it. The defense of Richard Sherman.
Okay.
And the influence of the Chiefs' game plan that allowed them to be able to run plays like what they did with Tyreek Hill, getting behind the corner in the deep third situation.
I haven't heard anyone in the media mention the inability of the defense to handle the mobile quarterback and that option game as a factor. So for the people, I think you're hearing it here first and only maybe. But long story short, that's what I see. And And I am looking forward. We'll talk the upcoming draft. We got the combine happening in February, March, something like that coming up. So we do have some things that are happening. You got the contract, the combine, the XFL, the draft, you know, so the schedule rolls on year round, and then we'll be coming back with more information from the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings and our bias and our record. Okay, any last words?
Yes, now I have last words, and they will be the last words for now, and that would be go Noles.